going to talk about a step that thousands, maybe millions of sellers miss. Companies miss it. And if you miss this step, it's going to cost you sales all of the time, every time. And that step is called information confirmation. Now, what's information confirmation? Well, literally, information confirmation is that step where you repeat back to the customer what it is you heard, and you get confirmation that that is in fact what you heard. And of course, this is so important because today more than any other time, customers, people in general, we need to feel felt. We need to feel like our voices matter, like somebody's listening to what we have to say. And I will tell you, if you perform this step correctly, the sale is 70% made. What customers want to know is that you understand their problem, that you empathize with their problem, that you understand the root cause of their problem. Because when you do that, in a sense, you are given permission to solve it. And I love to use the analogy of rock climbing. I live in Park City, Utah. There's a lot of rock climbing here. And any professional rock climber knows that you need to have a feedback loop in order to be safe. So in other words, the belayer, the person holding the rope, and the climber need to be in communication because they can't necessarily see each other. So here's what it sounds like. The belayer would say to the climber, belay on, meaning you're safe, you're on a rope. The climber would say, climbing, I'm gonna start. And then the belayer would say, climb on. As a seller, you can't climb on, you can't move forward with your sale, with your sales conversation until you know that your customer feels felt, that they feel heard. And until then, don't move on to the next step. The other thing I want to add that a great information confirmation does is it helps the customer crystallize their thoughts. In other words, they may have all of these problems, all of these challenges, all of these aspirations, all of these heart motivators that they're trying to achieve, and it just seems like a lot. So by giving an information confirmation, we're helping them crystallize their thoughts and to think what's important. Yes, these are the 3 problems I want to solve for. Yes, these are the reasons why, and here's why it matters. So you're not only going to confirm what you heard, you're going to crystallize their thoughts. So now, let's go ahead and look at how do we perform a rock-solid information confirmation statement. Well, it's really quite simple. We're going to use a framework that you're probably familiar with if you've listened to any of our programs, and that is the Skin, Bone, Heart Connective Tissue Framework. So it's really quite simple. After we've, for example, done a good discovery or had a good sales conversation, we're going to start with, what I heard from you today is. That's your start. Very, very simple. If I understand you correctly, or what I heard from you today is. And then repeat back the skin information, the facts, everything you've heard. So for example, if you're selling B2B, you might say, what I understand is that you have 35 salespeople, your offices are located here, the CRM you're currently using it's just the facts. If you're selling B2C, what I understand is that you and your partner live here, you have this many children, whatever the case may be, but you are repeating back the facts. Now, here's where most sellers miss it. Very often, they want to get right to the problem. Your problem is you're losing money, you've got big challenges, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to skip repeating back the skin information or the facts. Why? It's an undeniable truth. What it shows is that you've listened. People feel heard. They feel validated. This is a trust-building step. And when people feel heard, they start to trust you. You're building deeper and deeper trust. Also, understand, people don't want to hear all of their problems repeated back to them right away. You kind of have to warm up into that. So by repeating back the skin first, you're going to start to get a head nod. Oh yeah, that's right. Wow, she's really listening to me. And if you start with a head nod, as you move into the bone issues and the heart, hopefully you'll continue to get that head nod. Which brings me to the next step. So after we've repeated back the skin information, that's when you're going to repeat back the bone information or the problems that the customer is having. And again, hopefully you've done a good enough discovery that you have the skin, bone, heart, and connective tissue information. So I like to start bone information with some of the challenges you're facing is. I always like to use the word challenge instead of problems. It's a little softer. So if I understand you correctly, some of the current challenges you're facing is your sellers are not doing a long enough discovery. Your seller's sales cycle is too long, whatever the case may be. But you're gonna then outline all of the challenges that they're dealing with. And again, you wanna get commitment that that is in fact the problem. It's very important if there's more than one stakeholder. So I want you to think about this for a minute. If you've got husband and husband or husband and wife, or if you're selling B2B and you've got multiple stakeholders, one of the biggest mistakes we make is we uncover the problem from one of the decision makers, but not all of the decision makers. So this step really helps to make sure that everybody is in agreement on the same problem. Because if you're only solving for one person's problem and 2 or 10 people are involved in the decision-making process, you're not gonna get a sale. So you're gonna confirm the problem that you heard, and then what I like to say is, did I miss anything? Are there any other challenges? Now, this is especially effective if you maybe talk to just 1 or 2 stakeholders and then more are on the call, or you're meeting with more of them in person. Did I miss anything? Does anybody else want to chime in? And then you're going to gather all of the challenges so that everybody on the sales call feels heard. So first, we're going to repeat back the skin information, the undeniable truth. Then we're going to repeat back the problems and get consensus that those are in fact the problems. Then you're going to repeat back the heart information. That's the what's in it for me, the emotional motivators. Now, this is important to you, Mr. and Mrs. Client, because one of the things you're trying to achieve is you're trying to get more time back. You're trying to get more time with your family. You're trying to grow and improve your culture. So this goes back to those key emotional motivators. You want to confirm that you got that right too. Super important. What do they have to gain by moving forward with you? So now we've done information confirmation. We've repeated back the skin, the bone, the heart. Now it's time to repeat back the connective tissue. And don't forget, the connective tissue is what's their criteria for deciding. It's also a great way to bring up next steps, what I'm going to do for you and what you're going to do for me. So it might sound something like this. Our next steps are, we agreed to have a conversation Tuesday at 2 o'clock. What I'm going to do for you is get you some information on X. What you're going to do for me is bring in Roy and Dory to the conversation because they need to be involved as well. Is there anything else that I missed? Again, we're constantly asking, did I get all of the information, not just the right information? That's the feedback loop that we're trying to get. And then finally, we're going to gain agreement. And this is where you stop and pause. You want to gain agreement from all parties. Did I get that right? And is there anything else I should know? Now, in total, this information confirmation should probably take less than 60 seconds. And that's why it's so important as you're talking to a client. I like to keep notes, and I like to do it in the skin, bone, heart, connective tissue format. And we actually put that information in our CRM so that if somebody else on the team needs to pick up where I left off, they know exactly. Here's the skin, bone, heart, and connective tissue information. Sometimes you might have 10, 15 calls with different clients. So before I get on a second call or a third call, I can look right in my notes. Oh yeah, what's the skin, bone, heart, connective tissue information? Because if you're working as fast and furious as most sellers we talk to, it's very easy to confuse what different customers want and what's important to them. So now that we know why we should do an info confo and how to do an info confo, finally, let's look at some common default behaviors or pitfalls. When you've been training something long enough, you start to see patterns or common pitfalls in sellers. And I'm going to give you the 5 biggest default behaviors that we see at Levitin Group. Number 1, a lack of specificity. It's even hard to say that, specificity. What I mean by that is we make generic comments. So it might sound something like this. What I hear you saying is that your revenue's not as good as it used to be. You've got a new head of marketing. No, your revenue has slipped by 36%. Your new head of marketing, Janice, the more specific, the more people feel felt, the more they feel heard. So you want to be as specific as possible, and you want to use their exact words. I want you to think about this for a minute. Different words mean different things to different people. One of the things we love to do in our seminars is an exercise where we'll say, write in the chat, or if we're live, what comes to mind when I say the word dog? Think about that for a minute right now yourself. When I say the word dog, what comes to your mind? Well, my guess is if you have a dog, it's your dog. What would come to mind for me is Boston Terrier. What would come to mind for you might be Cockapoo, it might be Golden Doodle, or whatever dog your neighbor has, but chances are the word dog has a different meaning to you than it does to me. That's why if your customer says something like, we want to grow market share, you don't want to say you want to grow profits. You want to use their words. Or if they say, we're tired of salespeople escalating issues and managers not responding. We just had a client the other day saying, we need help in de-escalation. I'm going to want to repeat back. You mentioned earlier, you want help in de-escalation. I'm not going to say you want help in making problems feel like they're less. So again, we want to use their words, not ours. So we need to be specific. The number 2 default behavior I see is we jump to the bone. So I said it earlier, we fail to take the time to repeat back the skin information, the undeniable truth, and we jump right to the problems. Again, people don't feel heard and they don't want to hear a laundry list of their problems. Number 3, a failure to use information confirmation throughout all the stages of your sales process and sales conversations. Information confirmation isn't just after the discovery. In fact, before each sales call, if I've already done a discovery, already done an information confirmation, I will start the next sales conversation with, last time we talked, this is what I heard. I'm going to run through skin, bone, heart, connective tissue, and then I'm going to say, has anything changed? Because for all you know, since the last time you talked, their company's been sold, their vice president of sales has been fired. If you're talking B2C, maybe they're moving to Afghanistan. You don't know. You better ask, has anything changed before you just launch into your spiel? So the 3rd default behavior is a failure to use info-confo throughout. Use it at the beginning of every sales conversation and use it often. We have to stop and confirm and get consensus from everybody in the party. The other day, I was on a Zoom call and I was getting confirmation from 3 out of the 4 people on the call. I'm getting head nods, yeah, that's right, that's right. But one of them, April, she was really the top decision maker. She was like this. So I had to call out and say, April, do you have anything to add? It feels like I've missed something. Oh, that woke up April. She said, yeah, I think you missed the point. Well, I need to know that because if I don't have consensus on the problem from everybody, I'm certainly not going to get consensus on my solution. And the final default behavior, this is the worst. The minute that we get problems and aspirations, we skip the information confirmation and we engage in what I call premature demonstration syndrome. That's right, we sell too soon. Do not skip this all-important information confirmation step. As I tell my son all the time, a great seller is interested, not interesting. And information confirmation shows the customer that you really listened, helps them to feel felt, so they have confidence and trust in you to solve their problems by buying your solutions.